I am glad that effective advertising led to a great turnout today. We could never quite get it right with room size, but unfortunately there were things going on in the ballroom, so this was the largest space we had available that was centrally located for folks. I think you filled it pretty well, but I see a couple chairs are still right up front here if people want to look for something. Otherwise, feel free to sit on the floor. Fortunately, President Abdallah has a voice that carries. I think he'll be able to fill the room. And thank you very much for submitting questions ahead of time. This way, even with a large crowd, we know we're going to address a wide variety of issues. We appreciate everybody who sent questions and concerns to the UNM Press website. We also appreciate the long list. I think we got like 96 contributions from staff council because they ran their own survey and collected questions for us. Fortunately, the president had a little bit of time to look at those before the town hall today. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our acting president, Chaouki Abdallah, and welcome, Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you all. So first, let me add my thanks to those paintings. You know, you're right. You know, last time when we had it downstairs in a very big room, we didn't have enough people. When we did it on the health sciences side, we had a lot more participation. So I think we learned from that, and we advertised it in different ways. And I think this is a testimonial that you can. And thank you for sending the questions. What I wanted to do is just talk for about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to set the stage, and then I hope what we can do is I'll go through some of these questions, which many of them are generic or common. You know, many of you had the same concerns, and then switch to something from the audience. So go back and forth. That way we can address hopefully those who are here that submit questions or who are not here. So. And switch back and forth, as I mentioned. So let's do that if you are able to do that. This is not going to be the last one. I know there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of interest in what's happening at the university. This is the 3rd town hall. I'll do as many as I possibly can and get people to try to answer questions, especially when there is something. And right now, as you know, we're in the budget season still, kind of out of Santa Fe. We are hoping to have a budget. Something from Santa Fe we don't. The bills that were sent to the governor were, I wouldn't say great, but they were okay, meaning the cut was only 1% to the university as opposed to, what could have been or what could still be if they don't agree on something. So we're operating under that scenario or that model to be about 1, maybe 2% from the state. That's what we're thinking at this stage. As you know, our enrollment also has not kept up, so we have a little bit of a shortfall there too. Now we have a committee which is called the Budget Leadership Team. Some of the members are in here that has been meeting from I think in November is when you guys started, and they made a recommendation that to me that I'm still digesting, and I'll talk to the regents about it. But it's assuming this model, or this idea that it could be actually, I think you modeled 2% cut from the state with this one. Hopefully in E1, it could be worse, but The bottom line with this is, with that, we're about $10 million short. It seems to be the same story every year, the $10 million short for the year, which is what I kept saying in prior town halls or prior talks, is that our budget is about $330 million. This is the real budget. The real budget, what I mean by that is the main campus ING. That's what I mean, $330 million.
Excuse me, is it possible to turn up the volume? It's kind of hard to hear.
Is it still hard to hear? Okay,
yeah.
So I'll speak louder. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll speak louder. Thank you. So the budget is about $330 million. About 3% is about $10 million. So every year, to stay in place, we need $10 million. And as you know, that hasn't been the case for the last few years. Now, the way to deal with this is either cut expenses, raise revenues, or do things differently. We've been cutting expenses. We've been trying to raise revenues from different areas. But I think the time has come to try to design a different model. And this is something that I've advocated last year. depending on what I am in the next few months, I think this is what we need to do in order to make sure that the university can survive without going through every year through this short term, making up 10 million every year, which is coming at the expense usually of cuts right now, because we're not raising enough revenues for that. And this goes to one of the first questions that somebody asked, which is, are there any models or any things out there to try to look at the long term? And the answer is that there are few things that we're going to have to start implementing or looking at. Some of them I'm going to mention in passing, and then as the conversation proceeds, we can do more about it, or we can discuss more about it. We are looking, or we have started things like centralizing some of the services. Now, again, when I say that, somebody is unhappy with it because either a department or a college is not going to be able to, or they're not going to have the services delivered by the person next door. We've done this in the financial arena, and I think in that arena we've been successful in trying to deliver the same or better service while saving both the departments, the colleges, some of the money and doing it at a cheaper level. So some of that is going to have to happen even more, centralizing some of the services. We were able to do most of that, not all of it, but most of it by attrition. Somebody's leaving, we just tell them, okay, you keep 20% or 30% or whatever it is, and we'll do the work for the rest of it and so on. That's going to have to happen in some areas that are not in the main mission. And as the deans and the chairs and others are looking at this, again, that means that you're not going to get, the person next door to support your computer, for example, directly. At the same time, if we do our job well, and if we can deliver a service which is the same or even better, and some we can, like the online, like the financial, then it's a win-win for everybody because we do save some money. But even under the best of circumstances, under everything that we do, we're not going to be able to generate 10 million a year. We're not going to be able to save 3%, especially after the last few years and so on. So that means revenues. The revenues, there are two places to get the revenues. One is on the same number of students or fewer students, and that means tuition increase. As you know, that hasn't been very popular either with the general public, and with the regents and so on. But we've had a couple in the last few years, not enough, but I think we need to, and we are making the case that we need something. But more importantly, I think we need to raise revenues elsewhere. And by elsewhere, I mean in different ways of generating revenues. It's not going to come from the state. The state doesn't have money. For those of you who think that they need to give us more, they don't have it in terms of dedicating a particular amount of money, unless they raise taxes, which is another issue that is beyond my control and your control. So if you can convince them to raise taxes, I think we can do better in this one, in the short term or in the long term, I'm not sure. But in terms of getting the money right now, we get about less than 13% of the state budget into higher education. Less than 13%, which is huge for any state. I think Wyoming is the only one that has more than 13%. Everybody else is around 6, 7, 8%. So the state of New Mexico does fund higher education. The trouble is it funds it in a very inefficient way. It gives it to 30-some institutions, it ends up being spread across, and so on and so forth. So we end up, they end up taxing or taking a larger portion of the tax revenue, but not giving enough, or we don't get enough of it. So I can't count on the state suddenly deciding that they're going to give us $10 million. So, if things turn around and we have a better year in oil and gas or whatever it is, we may be able to get maybe half of it or so. The rest of it is we're going to have to generate it ourselves. And the way we're hoping, or we're planning on doing this, is what something like the School of Anderson School of Business, what they did, is they're recruiting unusual students. Unusual meaning those that we didn't have initially, or they haven't been on our radar before. So they have things in the summer with international students, they have other things online, and so on and so forth. So they're generating extra revenues that they're able to support and to move forward. But even with that, I think, we don't have, again, another 3 or 5 million or something in every year on year. So what we need to do is really do business differently, and that's the part that I'm hoping in the next few months, depending on whether I am in this position or I'm back in the provost office, we will be engaging everybody on. So that's the overall thing. I can take a question from the audience and or go back to this. Most of the questions, by the way, that came from this group were around the finances, around the staff pay, and so on. So that's the way that's the reason I'm focusing on this versus either campus climate or other things that I said in the previous town hall. So if somebody wants to ask a question, or I can go to some of these in here, I'll be happy to answer. Okay, here we go.
Okay, in today's Albuquerque Journal was an article about possible furloughs the governor is considering. In today's Albuquerque Journal was an article about possible furloughs the governor is considering. What are the possibilities that furloughs will be considered for staff at UNM?
Okay, so that was one of the questions, actually. I don't know who sent it, maybe you did send it, or somebody else sent it, but that was one of the questions on the list. So, as you know, I mean, furlough, if it's unpaid furloughs, of course, it saves the main the campus money or the university money. You know, I would say today everything is on the table in the following sense. We're looking to make up this $10 million. We don't know how we can make it up. If we get 1% cut from Santa Fe, then we're a little bit ahead. We don't need 10 million or 11 million, whatever it is. If it turns out that we cannot make it up, then we'll consider everything, including furloughs, and try to make it up with that rather than layoffs. I mean, all the way, you know, I mean, again, you know, cutting costs it's not rocket science. You either have to have, you know, less in one column or more in the other column. Since the revenues are what they are or what they will be, depending on what the state tells us. If the regions approve some kind of revenue in terms of tuition, then that reduces that last piece that we have to do to make it up. If they don't, then we have to do more on the, you know, we have the hiring freeze. Somebody asked, is the hiring freeze going to continue? Yeah, probably. I mean, not probably. Right now, we're counting on the hiring freeze. We're counting on it because this is the way, rather than trying to eliminate or let people go. The hiring freeze is the way that, you know, we're saying, okay, either delay it by 6 months or don't approve something until we know where we're going to come out on the other side. The hiring freeze has helped make up, you know, last year, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we started out with 2% cut, of 1.5, 1.7, 1.5. Then we got another 5% decision during the year. So we had to make up about 6.5% last year. That, you know, we started the year not having that. So that's what I mean by planning year to year. It's not going to be, depending on the state, you know, they give and they take away. You know, it's not going to be an easy or you know, cannot be so dependent on it in the long term. But we are to the tune of about 100. We started out almost 220 million a few years ago. We're now at 176 million from the state. 176 is what we get from the state. This is just the ING portion. We get some things for, and this is the main campus. So HSC gets about 90 million, the branches get about 40 million, and then we get some RPSP, research and special projects. But really we're at about 176 million right now out of the 330 million that we need to run the academic enterprise. So you know, I can't tell you, you know, it's going to happen. I mean, I think if you know, this is probably recorded and, you know, everybody is going to hear it somewhere. I think this is probably a bargaining position, but I don't know. I don't know whether you know, whether the furlough is an actual thing that she's planning on starting, or, you know, this is the bargaining position with the legislature. So there were a couple of questions. You know, I like to address some things that, you know, there may be a little bit of you know, I would say good news, but you know, and you know, any bit of good news is good. So there were some questions about the time off or the days we have and so on. And I went back and I asked our HR division to check on these things, and we've been about seven days or so for these are the around Christmas and New Year's. This year, actually, President Frank, let's see, 2017 is seven days, right? 21st or 22nd to the 1st is what it is. So I asked, who makes that decision? And they said, you. So I asked, can I add a day? And they said, sure, but you can't add it this year, you can add it next year. So next year, we'll make it 8 days. We'll start on the 21st. Small price, but that's a one thing. I mean, it didn't come out of my eye. It just, I felt it can be, what is it that I can do versus other people can do? You know, and some of the things are beyond my personal decision or control. Somebody asked if I'm advocating to the regions for pay raises for the staff. Not just me. I mean, we all are. But as you understand, the regions have multiple constituents, including families, including politicians, and so on and so forth. So simply saying, you know, we need more money because we need to give COLA increases is an argument that, you know, may resonate, but, you know, somebody else would come in and say, well, you know, we're fighting people, or, you know, what are you guys thinking, and so on. So it's a conversation that takes, you know, that's one of the most difficult things in this position, is to try to advocate for the people you need to advocate for, but at the same time, knowing that ultimately some of these decisions are beyond even their control, but at some point, you know, we're advocating for, first of all, to make up this budget at the level that we need to make it up, and then try to see if we end up with a better budget from the state and so on, to try to see if we can give any cost of living adjustments and so on. In the last few years, you know, again, I checked on that also to see what happened. And as you know, we haven't had raises, at least the staff hasn't had raises in the last few years, but I did check on some of the one-times and so on, and I believe with the exception of 2016, I think that we were able to do, so let's see here. So let's see here. On 12-13, there was 1,100 one-time increase to everybody. On 13-14, there was 1% staff increase and 1,000 one-time increase. On 14-15, there was 3% faculty and 2.5 staff. There was a health premium holiday in 15, but I don't think we got any, we didn't get anything. In 16-17, we got 550. One time to people earning less than 100K and 200 medical discounts. So again, this is not to say, you know, things are great. I'm just saying that, you know, when we can, or where we are able to get these things, you know, we try to find the money, even if it's a one time. And unfortunately, that's been the norm in the last, you know, if you look at this since 2012 or 13, I think is what we've had one time. Yeah. Anyone else?
I was just wondering, as far as tuition goes, raising tuition is not something I don't think anybody really wants to. You know, we like to pose ourselves as an affordable option for the Mexicans and out-of-state people. Okay. The question is there a way to means test tuition beyond what we're doing now, so that people can still afford it if they're not well?
So the question is there a way to means test it, given that the tuition is not something, I mean, nobody wants to raise tuition, right? I mean, one of the things, I don't know if you saw the article, but 2 days ago it was in the journal, listing a national survey or a national data that shows that New Mexico is the most affordable, the cheapest credit hour, basically, in the United States. Now, you know, anytime you show data, you know, somebody will say, yeah, but we're poorer than this, and so you take it with a grain of salt, but it means it is affordable for in general. To answer your question, at the current stage in our discussions and what we got from the BLT, it says you need to make up this much, 10 million or 11 million. Depending on what happens at the state, depending on what happens with the freeze and so on, that's when we see, okay, we need to have so much that has to come from tuition at that point. Now, can we means test it? Well, I don't know if you know this, but today, the average student at UNM pays, about 1,800 in tuition. You know, the tuition is 7,500 tuition and fees. And I'm not talking about loans, I'm talking about, you know, grants. This includes the lottery, includes other things. So it is even more affordable than that, but most of the cost is not the tuition to most students, right? It's the living expenses, but it costs about $20,000 to attend the university. So, we feel like the tuition, yeah, there is a little bit of room in there. And if we raise it, what we've been doing in the last few years when we had tuition raises, to take 20% and put it into financial aid, need-based financial aid. I think that's the model that works, because to try to meet tested is going to be very complex, very complicated. But if you say estimated faculty contribution, this is when they apply. If you say they have zero estimated faculty contribution and we raise it by $100, well, that means he doesn't have the $100 that he needs, so we need to make it up. So that's the model that when we rent these models, we need to make sure that we don't leave so many people behind. At the same time, we need that income. Each 1% of the tuition is about 130 million, so 1.3 million, which corresponds to 0.5% raise, 0.5% raise on ING. So you need to raise it by 2% in order to get 1% raise for everybody sitting in this room and working. Again, I use main campus as an example, not because I think the others are not important, but they have a totally different model. Totally different model. So their money doesn't come, most of their money, they get 90 million from the state. Their budget is 1.6, 1.7 billion. So they get a minuscule amount, So when they say they cut tuition for medical students, they cut it by 1%. That's nothing. That's like saying on main campus, I'm going to give everybody 10 cents back. That's what it is, effectively. But it sends a good message. But their model, they have their challenges now because of all of the healthcare and so on. But I speak about main campus because I think that's, and the money, again, I want people to keep in mind, it's 330 million approximately, the budget. It turns out to be about 180 from the state, 140, 150 from tuition. That's the basic. And that's what it takes to run the enterprise. It's actually more than that, right? It's 800, 900 million that includes things like the start and so on. But those are services you're buying, it's coming and it's leaving. 330, if we look at our salaries, our benefits, the things to run the academic enterprise, it's about 330 million, which happens to be tuition. Well, it happens to be, it's not meant to be like this. 140, 100 something, about 140, 150 in tuition, about 180 in state funding. So that's the piece that we need to either increase one of them, tuition, by getting more students, right? The state, I think it's going to increase maybe by 1%, 2% overall. It's not going to come up. So when they put pressure on the other side of it, and when our expenses this year, much of the increase, there's something called the higher education price index, like the CPI. It's about 3%. And this happens regardless of what you do and I do and so on. It's because, paying for the lights is going to increase, or our benefits are going to increase, or, everything that we do. If you add it all together, if you average it, it's about 3% every year. So every 330 million, we need 10 million every year. That's to stay in place. Until, if we want to get ahead, we either need to cut some things we're doing, stop doing things we're doing, or add revenues on the other side. And that's what I hope the next few months, the next year, in preparing for a new president, we can come together and present something that may tell us we need to start doing some things, including each one of us having their own IT person, or their own web person, or maybe their own financial person. I don't mean each one of us, but I mean each subgroup, each. It could be that's one of the things that we can do. But once we do that, that's it. We save, let's say 5 million and 3 million. Let's see. I saw Nicole. How much are we at? Where's Nicole down? Okay. So how much are we at in terms of about 1.3 million in shared services in the area of financial operation, financial transactions. And if anybody is in, let's see, so who should I ask? Anybody? So I think most, so education, fine arts decided they wanted to join this model, and when we do the evaluations every year, Nicole gets, 98% approval, because I think in this particular area, we can deliver the service. The problem is this, and I'm the first one to admit it, in many cases, when we centralize or when we take things away, the service quality goes down. And if we cannot guarantee at least the same level of service, or the same cost, or better service, then it doesn't make any sense. And in some cases, this is the problem. In this case, I think we have shown that at least in this case, we can do it. And therefore, we're able to do 1.3. If we were to do it all, maybe another million or something across camp, but that's it. That's it. Should I read another one, or you want to get done? I mean, most of the questions are similar. They are about, you know, I had a question, what's the future of tenure at UNM? And I didn't know how to answer that because I can't predict the future, but I can tell you as long as I'm either provost or president, there is no discussion about either revoking tenure or changing tenure and so on. We have been able to, unlike many of our sister institutions across the U.S., to keep the ratio at a stable level. We do have a lot of adjuncts, but we are nowhere near, you know, what others have chosen or were forced to do. Now, I look here at one model, which is interesting, and you know, once we start talking about how to redesign the university, maybe that's something we should discuss, and that is that somebody wants to work 50% faculty, you know, even from the beginning, for whatever reason. So can you do that? Can you do part-time and still get tenure? You know, and we had one off of these things, but I think some models right now are to try to say, okay, if somebody wants to just focus on 50% or whatever it is, you know, is there a way to do that? And I think as we start discussing some of these, I think that may not be a bad one to put on the table. Well, I don't want to talk about free speech unless somebody asks about free speech. I never want to talk. No, that's not true. I always want to talk about free speech. So I'll say something about that. This has been one of the other issues that have been bubbling. You know, when I was asked to be acting president, I said that there are three things I need to work on. The first is campus climate. The other one is this relationship between the university and the outside and the regions and the president. Okay. Does that summarize what we're going through? After everything we're going. And the last one is the financial situation, the short term and the long term. So the campus climate, as you know, what's happening across the nation, and it started before the election. It started maybe 2 or 3 years ago, even before. I don't know how many of you remember Occupy Wall Street. There used to be a big movement called Occupy Wall Street. You know, right now, you know, we don't hear about Occupy Wall Street. Then we had the Tea Party, then we had, you know, the Black Lives Matter and so on and so on. And then we had an election. And throughout all of this, you know, campuses become a center for having these discussions and having sometimes uncomfortable conversation and sometimes more than uncomfortable. I mean, you know, the physical attacks or physical focused on some of the different folks. So what I come down on it is that you know, the university does not endorse any particular idea, you know, specifically. The university is not about, you know, saying, you know, you should do this or you should do that. The university is about providing the forum and searching for the truth and searching for beauty and searching for you know, the good things that culture or a cultural person would have. So in doing so, in many cases, you know, we provide a forum because that's part of our job is to provide a forum to people that 80%, 90% of us disagree with. And they may think that it's actually a bad thing, or you know, that this person is really a bad person and should not be allowed on campus. Texas Tech a few years ago, Angela Davis was invited, and there were a lot of pushback, and they had to disinvite Angela Davis. Now, you know, some of you may agree with that. A lot of you may disagree with the fact that Angela Davis was disinvited. What's happening right now, or what happened in the last year, is we had some groups on our campus who wanted to test this idea that the campus is free speech. They're not really interested in getting that person. They just want to push the button to make sure that, are you really about free speech, or are you just saying this and then you're going to stop them? And it happened after the election because we had a lot of feelings come to the surface on either side, and it became a big issue to different groups that we had to navigate. Now, once, and you may disagree if you are in my position, if you are the acting president, you may choose a different path. But once I made the decision that we are going to allow speakers on campus, my job, everybody else's in the administration was to guarantee safety. That's it. That's it. So until the last minute, until the day before, the main concern was, can we guarantee safety? And if we can't, we were going to cancel it at the last minute. We were going to cancel it if we could not guarantee safety. At 3 o'clock the previous day, I was presented with a plan that said, yes, we can guarantee safety. We went with it. We had a, what I would consider a low incident type event. Am I happy that he came to campus? No. I'm glad he got caught. The person who came. Notice I don't say his name because I don't want to give him anymore. I don't appreciate what he did or what he said. But you know how he got caught? He got caught because a teenager in Canada went online in Canada, not even in the United States. He's not going to Canada. Went online and looked up his stuff, and she was so disgusted that she went and she found out the stuff that he said about pedophilia and so on. That's how he got caught. So the point of this is, you can fight these things with a lot of different ways. One way is to say we're not going to have him, but on the other side, somebody say you cannot have Rose Farrakhan, or you cannot have, somebody else. On either side, there's somebody with 10% or 20% who are going to object. And I feel like as a university, and as long as I can make these decisions, I will always err on the side of allowing people to speak. Because as I keep mentioning, yesterday, I come from a country where this right was not enshrined. It was something that you had, and then they took it away. But yesterday, I was reading something from my home country, from Lebanon, and there's a journalist who's being arrested because he actually wrote something against not even the country, but a friendly country. He wrote something against, let's say the president of France or something like that. And he's being arrested because there's a law that says, this is whatever, we're destroying relations or something. I mean, there's a law against that. So the alternative of what we have, which could be, on one side, maybe too lenient, or you think, okay, the alternative is a slippery slope that could get you to a place, especially at this time when you need your right to demonstrate, and you need your right to be able to speak against or for whatever you believe in. I think that's one that I'm willing to defend over and over. At the same time, that doesn't excuse us from listening and taking care of those who did feel that they are being either threatened or harassed and so on. But that's up to us, and that's up to all of us, not up to the person outside. So I'm encouraging groups who come to me and they say, don't let so-and-so speak. I'm encouraging them to invite their speakers. So invite your speakers. And if you can't afford it, if you cannot have the money to, start like the other group did. Start the crowdfunding things. And, I'll be the first one to contribute to both sides, because I think it's important to have it.
Mr. President, I have a comment.
You have a comment? Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
I would like to know, on this very topic, I would like to know how much the university has spent, how much money they spend on security. So, but before I move on to that, I mean, that's a concern. But speaking to what you just said, that some people, or some students, or some groups wanted to push this idea of how much freedom of speech is allowed here in the university. I don't know what to think about this comment that you just made, because think about it. We have someone who comes and speaks badly. In fact, I was very, very disappointed that the first picture he put on top, it was your face, and made fun of the president.
I didn't care.
I understand that you don't care, and I understand, right? But the university is not a circus. It's a place where people debate, yes, I understand, but by virtue of bringing militarized police all the people were excluded from the speech, right? And taking into consideration that the product wasn't cheap, that the university had to pay a lot of money, or I don't know how much the university paid for protecting that freedom of speech. No, that doesn't resonate very well because then you have 60% of the student population feeling left out. Just because some
Can I
people.
answer it, or do you want
No,
to
no,
continue?
go ahead.
Okay.
You know, but then,
Thank you. I understand where you're coming from. So let me first say, how much did we spend? The answer is, I don't know yet, because I haven't had the bill from the police. The police, I told them, nobody gets hurt. You said you militarized the campus. Indeed, what I wanted is nobody gets hurt. What happened at Berkeley is some people got hurt. In Washington, somebody got shot. I did not want any person to get hurt. And the fact that you were able, and my picture was up there, and he made fun of me and said other things about other people and so on. The fact that you and I are able to have this conversation is exactly why we need to have free speech. Because if we were in a different country, either I would be able to say what I said, or you would be arrested for approaching authority and saying something. That's exactly the point. The point is not that speech is important exactly or protected exactly because it's controversial, not because we're talking about the fun things or the good things. So what I'm asking is, the groups who feel like they're not being, or they were threatened and so on, invite people, and the same thing will happen. We will protect the venue. We are protecting not the person, we're protecting the principle. That this is at a university that people should be able to disagree. Now, you know the reason we had to spend that much money? It's because the people demonstrated, came in to demonstrate against them. And we were watching online to see what happened. And that's the reason we had to spend the money. Meaning, if nobody showed up to see this person, we wouldn't have spent 1 penny. In fact, that's what's happening right now to the other one. Charles Murray, who's going, he was at a university where, he was shouted down and, hit and so on. He went to a couple of other universities and nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. So I think the point is, if we had gone online and tried to get this person exactly the same what the teenager from Canada had done, maybe his story would have come out earlier and he would be in this thing. He's just, the funny thing about this right now, not, funny in a dark way, is that he's complaining that his rights, that, wow, I'm hurt by this thing. The person who did all of this hurt a lot of people by saying he was hurt. Personally, he was hurt because, somebody took something that he did a while back and used it. But that's the whole issue. So you and I will have to disagree on this, but I think when I find out what the amount is, I'll tell you, but it wasn't cheap. It wasn't cheap. And the reason I suspended that is because the legality of the policy did not survive in a different institution. So I suspended that until people now, when I invite speakers to come in and speak to the topics that we want to discuss, and I would encourage you, actually I would encourage everyone, the only way we're going to get out of the cycle is not by bringing speakers after speakers who are controversial and just to reinforce our thing or to test a particular principle. The way we're going to get out of it is to take the groups who are on one side and the other and get them in the same room together, and that's when you should have the conversation. If I took the Kiva Club and I put up with the Young Americans for Liberty and get their advisors in there and have the conversation, because the issue here is not really about defending the rights of X to speak. The issue is that somebody is pushing the buttons and saying, well, the university is not about free speech, or the other ones are saying, well, the university should curtail this particular person. But if I had made the decision to curtail somebody else, I'm sure I'm going to hear from somebody else too.
And just to make a note, I don't disagree with you, Mr. President. I'm just saying that we have to ensure that every student in this university feels protected.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
That's the point that we're...
I'm absolutely with you. I'm absolutely with you. I want to pick a couple more in this since... I'm sorry? There's a question? Should I throw it at you? What did you tell them who you are? Nobody knows who you are.
Oh, my name is Kyle. I'm a graduate student, body president. And first of all, I'd like to applaud the students that are in here. There are a lot of staff and faculty, but I'd like to give praise to all the students as well. you have something to raise your hand?
All right, good.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about tuition again.
There we go.
Yeah.
Good, good. Let's go.
I guess in a year that we are unsure about the lottery scholarship coverage for students, and in a year that student fees will be increasing by over 10% due to institutional bonds,
Right.
how can you justify to a student their tuition being increased by potentially 10%?
Okay. Well, thank you, Kyle. Kyle has been serving as a spokesperson and supporter of the students for a year now. So is it next week? When is your term over?
May 12th at noon.
May 12th at noon. You won't be doing it. So, yeah. If you need anything. Anyway, so let me tell you how I justify. I don't do it lightly. I don't think it's like, okay, well, let's go and get the students. But here's the bottom line. The bottom line is, think of it as your family, and you have two incomes in the family. And there are expenses. There's school, there's medical, there's a car, there's you want to go out, entertainment, and so on. If one of those is going down, okay, you cut first. You don't go out every weekend. Then you cut something else, and at some point you get to the medical, and you have to take care of it. That's the point I'm trying to make. If the money is not there to deliver the education, because at the end of the day, the best investment you can make, better than a car, better than a house, better than stock market, is your education. So even with all of this, let's take the total $20,000. $20,000 a year is what it costs if you're paying approximately at the University of New Mexico. You're in-state. $20,000. This includes your tuition and your living expenses. $21,000, I think. Times 4, $80,000. $80,000 to get you each year another 10 to 20,000. In fact, the ROI, the return on investment, just from the money, from the earning potential, is almost 13-14%. It's almost like 400,000 or 500,000 or more over the lifetime. So from the economic point of view, it makes sense. I'm adding, let's say 10%. Let's say, and I don't know where the 10% came from, but let's say for the sake of argument, $600. On the tuition, $600 a year. If that $600 guarantees for you that we can have a happier staff, or that we can deliver education in a better way because we can update the lab, or that we can retain that professor that right now somebody is trying to pay him to go elsewhere, and would you spend $600 a year in order to get so much more benefits? I'm speaking as somebody who came from a very poor background. Right now I'm not poor, I do very well, but I know that if somebody told me, if you pay $5,000 more on my insurance, I'm talking about me, but your son, when he goes to the hospital, is going to have the best doctor, I would do it. I'm putting it in things that I think about, but also in the sense that if it's $600 or 10% or 5%, it's not what you're spending, it's what you're getting. And if what you're getting is more, or is accelerating more than what you're spending, let me give you another anecdote, for example. The University of New Mexico is a very good university. In fact, in some areas, it's a great university. But one of the things we suffer from is our reputation in some areas. They are not as high. Although the actual performance, if you go by the numbers, we're doing very well. But our reputation is not what it should be. So if you take as an example, the University of New Mexico Electrical Engineering Department, which I know very well, or my alma mater, Georgia Tech, which I know very well. I can put our faculty in here at the same level or better than the other ones. They charge, I think, about $10,000 or $12,000 a year versus the $6,000 that we charge here. A degree from Georgia Tech is going to get you a premium in engineering, and it's going to get you probably into better graduate school and so on. In fact, just to put a final point to it, there was one year when I was looking at the rankings and checking, and I saw biomedical engineering, and MIT was ranked number 3 in the nation. And I was surprised, I looked at it, MIT did not have a biomedical engineering. They just ranked number 3 because people assume MIT is going to be good. So there's some price to be paid for that, and that's what we're leaving on the table by saying, let's do it on the cheap. Let's do it on the cheap. So if you give us, not you personally, but if the students say, okay, we're gaining more by paying more. And by the way, those who cannot, we're taking the 20% to help with. That's the other piece of this, is that I don't want to, I think I would love to discuss everyone, If my kids go to the academy, if they go to the UNM, I'm going to get a huge pay raise. But that's not going to happen. I'm going to pay the same thing as somebody who doesn't, is at the middle level and so on. So if somebody, if there is a way to try to catch everybody, that's one of the pieces that I think we need to do better at is the need-based financial aid. The need-based is really, can use a lot more. But if we can catch those people, then there's no reason why we shouldn't charge the people who are making $150,000 and $200,000 and so on more than those who are on Pell grants. There's no reason why we shouldn't do that. Sorry, I know we disagree on this, maybe where the money goes after that is a different story. Should we spend it on this and that? But I think as far as the academic enterprise is concerned, I think we're giving it away, and we have a very good product that I think can be greater, much better if we can match what the product is, the price of the product. If we can do it, if the state would give us, another 20 million, we don't need to raise tuition at all. That would be great too, but I'm assuming we're not going to get it from the state. Therefore, I'm thinking the only other large place is either more students without increasing the number of faculty and the staff tremendously. Because at some point, we can maybe absorb another 100 or 200 students. After that, we need to add support systems. We need to add more faculty and so on. So it becomes advisors and others. So it becomes, you need to get into at some point. It's kind of like the airplane model, right? Once you fill the airplane, but once you buy the airplane, you have the captain, you need to fill it. That's what we need to do. Which reminds me, there is a potential to something like this. And that is to try to schedule classes in 4 days versus 5 days. So do like half Friday off, basically. Now, not everybody will get Friday off, but I'm saying, well, no, listen, you can. The other way to do it is, we can do it if we do 40 days, and 40 hours in 4 days. So that's one of the things that was suggested at one time. If we can do 4 days and do, 10 hours a day, basically, that's one way to do it. But if we can do 4 days instead of 5 days, I think the students would like it, right? Would you guys like it? How many days a week do you go to class now?
As an Anderson student, I haven't had class on a Friday.
See, Anderson always does these things, and then we find out about it. But Anderson has done it. I don't know. Anderson is doing that. I know. But if we can do it, then we can reduce the cost of a lot of costs, the physical costs, and so on, and we can free up some time to do other things too. So, is that a question in there? Is that a question? You need this.
I wanted to go back to campus climate, if that's okay.
Sure.
On January, I was in the Milo Yiannopoulos event.
Yeah. How was it?
It was horrible. It was very focused on immigration. It's a very relevant.
Yeah, speak up.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a very relevant topic right now.
Yeah.
But it was very anti-immigrant. It was about criminalization of Muslim people and undocumented people. There was a point where he showed the ICE number, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, in his PowerPoint, and he encouraged people to purge their local deals, so to call ICE on them. We have a huge undocumented population here in UNM, and after the event, a lot of us started feeling very scared. And there has been campaigns, to counter that anti-immigrant narrative here in UNM too. I've seen the hashtag You're Welcome thing, but the truth is that that's not including undocumented students. We're not seeing undocumented faces there. So my question to you is, are you willing to sit down with us as part of the UNM Dream Team, which is led by undocumented students, to come up with a plan with things we can do to make undocumented students feel safe again? Thank you.
So Well, first, thank you, and let me say, I have been sitting, not with your team, but I have been sitting with different groups. I will, of course I will, I just have, somebody from the office, you just tell them, and I would sit with you, and we're doing a lot of things. Actually, this is an issue that's very dear to my heart, because I have students I know personally who are in this position, and we're helping them on a personal basis as well as professionally. But yes, the answer is, of course I want to do that, and I will do that, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that our undocumented students feel safe, they're protected first of all, they feel safe, and they're supported in terms of sometimes we have people who are not able to read for whatever reason, and we're able to help them and so on. We do have a lot of resources, as you know, and while I'm not going to put up numbers and so on, you may know about the different resources, including at the law school, including in Centro de la Raza, including in the main, at the university level and at other places. There's so many places that we're coordinating to try to make. Actually, they are in one. What is the place that we put up? We put some of the listing.
I think it's on Josie's side.
Okay. So we have a place to go to and get, or we will advertise it more. What we didn't want to do is identify the undocumented. I mean, at one time we were asked to do certain things, and as you know, and you probably, others may or may not know, we don't know how many undocumented we have, and we don't want to know. We don't want to collect information. We're just trying to be as safe as possible. The university police does not enforce immigration law, and I'm going to put out a statement to that effect. There was something from the health sciences recently. We do not do it. That's the way it's been. We haven't. We've had one case on campus in the last, I think, 4 or 5 years where there was an arrest warrant, and that's that we can't do anything about that. But as far as we're concerned, we monitor with other universities. We're in touch with APNU and other universities. We see what they do, and we try to communicate. We're lobbying. Our congressional delegation is very supportive, as you probably know, but we're lobbying others, as universities, as collections of universities to try to inform and to try to push back against some of these executive orders, because the next thing that's happening right now, for example, is the DACA. We were more worried about DACA than undocumented, because DACA, people knew who they were, exactly. Well, the executive order comes in and says, nothing about the DACA, but what we heard is that in some cases they're going after the parents of the DACA students, and that's the same effect. So we're working with others and so on, but the simple answer is, not just as soon as you can, I will sit down with you and we'll explain what we're doing. If you have any other ideas, and make sure that we're connected, or that you're aware that you can disseminate it. We work with the consulate, with the Mexican consulate, that have a lot of resources, including legal resources in town. We work with them closely to try to get that. So, I mean, we're while we don't always advertise it in a way that calls attention, we are very concerned in making sure that as what we well, I mean, I think we're going with. You have a lot of advocates. We have a lot of advocates who are from the faculty, and especially from the faculty who have met with me and listed some of these things that we're working on. But you can talk. I don't know if you later want to raise your hand, maybe. Yeah. Oh, UNM Press. You can email UNM Press. Say I want to get a meeting. UNM Press. Just say I want to get a meeting.
Thank you for having the town hall. And my question, well, first of all, I'd like to say that I know that we're all very happy to have jobs here. I'm grateful to have a job, but I'm also very worried about the fact that health insurance might be going up. And so what that means is that the rest of us, staff members, we're going to get a pay decrease. So we're going to keep working here for less. And I just was wondering, I know we've had all of these one-time things, but it doesn't add to the base. And so that makes it hard for us as we're trying to make more money. But what's going to happen? I mean, furloughs, that's hitting us if we have that. But what can we do so that we're not losing money and not losing more grant?
get more students or get the state to give us more money. I mean, but let me say something, but it's not if it's gonna go up, it's how much. I mean, it's gonna go up. That's the fact of life is health insurance, but the benefits cost to you and to the institution. That's part of the 3% I mentioned. That's going up every year. It's slowed down, a little bit, and I think, but it's going up. I don't know how much to tell you the truth. What can you do? I mean, here's something that I did when I was in the provost office. When somebody retires, I took some of the duties and distributed them. And if I can do that and give more money to those who get to get more work. My feeling is that if we cannot pay people enough, we just have people, and they're not paid well paid, it's not, we're always falling behind because of the, but if something like this, departments, colleges, units are able to do that, that's one outlet to say, okay, you're already, you're doing, 100% to 110% and get 10% or 20%, whatever it is. That's one way to try, but again, I mean, none of this is really a silver bullet, because until the revenue side starts going up, the way of doing business as a university is no longer working. It's not working at UNM, it's not working at any state school. It's not working. Many state schools were able to raise tuition a lot during the times when the economy was doing better, including ASU, including Colorado, UC Boulder, other places. When they raised it, they used to be out, everybody was about the same. They raised it a lot and they put money in financial aid. We didn't do that because we had the generous support of the state and the lottery. Now the lottery is going down. The lottery this year is not going to be able to fund everything. Meanwhile, we haven't been able to put the space. So our most places right now, it's more than 50%. They're more than 50% tuition. If you add the two, tuition and state support, more than 50% tuition. UNM is still about 40 something, 42, I think. So 58% is still from the state. But we used to be 80% from the state. 80% from the state. Now it was a lower base, but still 80% from the state. So the point is there's not much room in raising that. And unless we do things differently. What is the new business model? I mean, I wish I had, I'll ask some of the economists who have been looking at this to see if anything makes sense. But for the next, we survived on this model for hundreds of years, where we have a small, we have a classroom, we have buildings, we have, one person delivering lecture to 20 or 30, or in some cases, we went to 500 students in the large ones, or we use adjuncts and so on. That model is broken. We cannot afford to deliver, it costs us about $15,000 to educate a student. So we need to get that money from between tuition, between the state, between other things. It's about $15,000. But that's maybe we can do it better. Maybe we can do it, I don't know if we can do it cheaper, but we maybe need to be doing it more efficiently. But I wish I know the answer to that. I could tell you that, no, it's going to be better this year. I can't tell you it's going to be better this year. I don't know. I mean, it could be if the state comes back and, suddenly the oil and gas shoots up and they feel generous to the university, or maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
We have one question. Last question.
Sorry.
Last question.
Last question? Well, he had his hand up. I don't know. So one thing, before you say something. So a lot of these questions that were sent out, I'm typing responses and I'll post them. So you'll have the answers to some of them. So I don't get to hear from everybody. And I'll do another one whenever I can, or whenever we can do this. So with that, last question.
Thank you, President Abdallah. My name is David Madrana. I'm a candidate for MHU here at UNM. And first, I want to thank you for the accessibility. Obviously, this room is packed. We all have interest in being here. I was at work before this, so I was watching on Facebook Live, so I really appreciate that. One of my questions is really on the process that you underwent for appointing the new student regent, because the governor had previously made a selection, as the Daily Logo article pointed out, and you requested the student government to reopen that process. And I was curious as to why you did that and how you feel that is a better process than what was honored before.
All right, thank you. So thank you for the question. So let me tell you what happened. So I came into the position on January 1. And I was told that the governor appointed a student regent. In fact, I had met her, on something, and they said. About a week later, I was told, again, from that office through the regions, that nomination has been withdrawn. That's what they did. They withdrew the nomination. And they talked to her. They told her.
The
So-
governor withdrew the nomination?
Yeah, the governor's office withdrew the nomination. Okay, and they talked to her. So she hadn't been approved or confirmed at the time. In fact, I don't think any of them have. So they asked me at that point to nominate students, to nominate student regents. So I went back to ASUNM and GPSA, and I asked them about the process. And they told me they had this long process, and they filtered it, and I said, how many did you have? And they, six, ended up. Huh?
We sent up 4.
4, okay. And I think GPSA, was GPSA 6, 7?
You had 8 full times?
You had 8, okay. So I said, can you open it and can you do it quickly? Can you do it within a week? And, GPSA said, they'll open it. The ASUNM said they looked at it and they felt they had a process, they didn't want to reopen or whatever, so they set the same. Glenda and GPSA opened it. We got 7. 8 new ones, and 7 old ones, 7 8 and 8, okay. So I sent out 8 plus 8 plus 4. I sent out everybody. I sent out the old ones, and I sent out the new ones. And by the way, I did ask, has this been done before? And indeed it has. The last time there was also a situation where I think the governor said she wanted new nominees or something. So, the process is exactly that the governor gets to appoint with our nomination. So, I didn't have time to meet with all of them. Normally the process is, because it was a short time, I set up every single one of them. She selected a person, which I met, and I find him very, very capable, but then I found some of the others very capable. In fact, one of them is in the room right now. So that's the process. So,
May I ask a follow-up?
sure, you can ask a follow-up. I don't know if I can answer a follow-up, but you ask it.
So you said you don't know why the governor withdrew the previous candidate that she selected.
Yes, I'm not privy to those.
So did you ask for any advice on picking the new students that, as you and your capacity as University President, would make a recommendation?
I'm sorry, say that. Did I ask who?
Did you ask the governor's office?
No,
why
I never spoke directly to the governor's office. I don't speak to the governor's office. I speak to the region. What I did is I said, I was told that they wanted to reopen the process to have, so I talked to GPSA and ASUNM, and I asked them for more names, and they gave me more names, and I sent every single one of them up, because I didn't have time to meet with them, and they didn't have time actually to do the complete vetting, or the complete thing in GPSA.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, President Abdallah. Thank you for your presence, and for those of you standing, for your stamina. All the questions, topics will be answered on the President's website. So you can go to that website. It also has the link to the Facebook recording. So not only was this live streamed, but there's also going to be a recording of the session if you have friends, coworkers who weren't able to be here today. And we look forward to seeing you at the next town hall. Thank you again.